join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, hey,
So welcome.
John.
Thank you all for coming. This is an unusual time for us to have a meeting. Usually after town meeting, we get a little time off, but it seemed important because we're trying to move this high school project forward and get to the next step. So, do we have anybody here for public participation for anything that's not on the agenda? Sure, please, come on.
Just sit right here, Terry, here.
All right.
No, okay, no, he should sit there for the camera. Go ahead, sir.
For camera.
Camera.
For the camera, that's right.
Did you get your makeup done, right? You got your makeup? Okay.
Hold up the placard.
Yeah,
It's for both of the people that might be watching.
it's on long, I think. My name's Jim McNiff. I live at 59 Villagewood Drive. What I'm here for is to really ask a question of the town, which covers some of the projects we talk about, but I'm not talking about any project in particular.
Sure.
Based on my experience at meetings at town and I've watched most of the town meetings, the videos. I'm probably the 57th, out of the 55 or whatever, out of 100. I got to ask the question, who on the town, from administrative or committees, are responsible for ensuring that the project cost is managed from a sense of necessity versus wanting something? And I was attending the meetings. I was at the police meeting. I've now watched the school meeting. And I can't really find, I know what your duties are. I see you're part of, once a project is approved, gets the funding, goes about getting the funding or how to fund, that you assist in how do we pay for this thing that they've just asked us to pay, which we're getting close to $500 million in these few years. That's been my work experience, because I did a lot of looking at what a project was and then being able to question it. So the examples were, if I took the police department, just quickly, these are not for me to place an argument on. I was at the meeting. I said, why do we need a $3 million gun range? Forget it. I should never have said it, because it was a want that was wanted, and it didn't make sense. I gave all the reasons why. I did my work because I do a lot of research. I have the time, and I knew what I was talking about. But that I let go because there seemed to be a little bit of resistance on that. And then you have where you have now with the last meeting of the selectmen, they discussed the police department, and it was about the bricks on the building. And they just came out that they approved the design. And I listened to the whole meeting, and one of the selectmen asked the question I was waiting for. What is the funding for this? He said, I want 2 questions answered. What is the funding? And then he went into a second question. Only the second question was addressed for the rest of the meeting. The meeting ended without saying what was the way you were going to fund this, or what the amount was. So that was something else that kind of said, okay, I see something. And now I look at the school, the high school, not doing anything about a project shouldn't be or not. I'm looking at from a stand of a taxpayer.
Sure.
If you want to say I'm Mr. Taxpayer. And I'm representing, because I don't think you get many people that know about it or understand it to be able to come up. And at the school level, I was watching their meeting, and I was waiting for the cost estimate. And it was stated at the meeting, the last meeting, well, the PSR that was done initially is probably what's still in place. But at the meeting, they had a new design, which had added a corridor. And it was going to be, which wasn't, I didn't see it on the original design. But my question would have been, what is that going to cost to the project? That wasn't discussed. What was stated was that the final budget wouldn't be ready. And I looked at the timeline. It would be 6 weeks before it goes to the town meeting. And I'm going, this is a $400 million. I think it needs a little bit more time for somebody to look at in the way I'm saying it should be looked at, because I don't know who's doing that. I mean, could you answer, who looks at a project cost and defines what's needed versus want versus the client? Say the client was a police chief. I want this. I don't blame him. I want it. But who's the one that manages the want and the need? And I can't figure it out in this town. That's
Roger,
I'll take a stab at it.
go ahead.
So for each of the projects, they're under the direction of a committee, whether it's a school committee or in the case of the police station, there's the administration and the select board are the approving ones. And those committees are basically responsible for defining the scope of the project and making those trade-offs. And then, they get supporting, because of all the other committees in town, they get input from the other committees like land use and capital budget and ways and means from other judgments about the general funding, financial arrangement of the town. I think that's the answer. It's like every committee is responsible for their own.
Okay, then they're not, then there's somebody that doesn't know what their responsibility is, because
No, I think they.
I have not seen one person. I've been at the police committee, I was at the meeting, the second meeting, and after when I did my $3 million spiel, and that was gone. But I haven't seen anybody take a project, a large scope at this point in time in the project, and go, we're going to hit $500 million down here. When are we going to look at what needs to be addressed now? Should that be included in the project and now? Just a second. An example would be with the police department. When I brought up the $3 million issue, I was told by a member of the planning board who was at the meeting, said, I want the best police in this town. I go for that, $3 million. And I'm going, I got all the document here. I interviewed the chief of police, Cambridge, and he said, it was like it didn't mean anything. To me, and I walked away from it. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. But I know I'm going to be paying for it in some fashion or other at the end. So
You and a lot of other people.
I understand that. $500 million will affect a lot of people. And I think it's a due diligence of looking at it also from a different perspective than maybe you look at it. You have to help fund it. That's what I said. I don't know if it's the right person because I don't know who the person is or the organization. So I know what you're saying from a process standpoint, what should be going on. And
I think
there should be, and that's really.
So I think, as you are well aware, having done the studies that you've done, people have different trade-offs. They make different trade-offs between money and features and longevity of the projects. So, and that's, a little bit of everybody gets shaken up and we try to figure out what a path forward is. It's not that there's one person that says this is too much or too little.
Well, that may be part of the issue, because to have that spread out where there's no one accountable for that or doing that, it makes it much more easier to let it drift in between. And that's what I've seen, and that's all I'm here for. I don't have an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just because you're throwing $500 million out there a lot, I'm going to say, 350 is about the highest number we've heard, as I recall. So,
For
We're
which,
talking about.
I'm talking all three. I'm talking about the police department.
all together, okay, fine.
Yeah, the package.
All right. I mean, Roger's hit the nail on the head. There is a high school building committee, of which Ms. Bond is the chair.
Oh, I know.
And they're the ones collectively responsible for making decisions. So if you have a concern that something isn't being looked at that you think is important to look at, bring it up to the building committee. They are the ones making that trade-off. As you say, our primary job is to figure out the funding and the best way to do that. But the people making the exact trade-offs are that building committee. So absolutely keep hammering on them.
So the assumption is that when you're getting the number, it's been gone through that process.
Yeah. I mean, the number that we're working with is the one that comes out of that building committee process, and it's their job to make the right trade-offs and decide what they feel that the town is willing to support, because obviously it's got to come to a town vote, so they want to propose something that will pass, obviously, or else it's a lot of work for nothing. But those are the right people to be talking to on that.
Mike?
So you mentioned the police station project, and I'm on the, so I'm on the building committee for that. I
To see it.
would say that the selectmen, not the building committee, are making decisions on that. For instance, we didn't have a vote or anything to say bricks or no bricks. I think that was decided in the selectmen meeting. So
But the
maybe
question, but the question
in some
wasn't,
places, the building committee has sway, or maybe not, but I feel like there's
I'm going in
there's a group behind that. Maybe it's the school committee in the case of the schools, and the selectmen in the case of the police station, that are making more of the decisions.
Yeah, so I would just say, unless anybody has a big point, I would say to wrap it up, one, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And your questions, it's important because your questions do represent a lot of people that won't bother to ask them. They'll just have hard feelings about it.
Right.
So that's not what we want. I would say on these projects are so big that they happen in the school. I'm on that building committee. And then there are all these working groups that meet, and they're not all televised, they're all public, you can go.
Right.
But those working groups include dozens of teachers or students or it depends. I'm on the finance working group. In those, they really get down into the nitty gritty. They're also driven, I know also with the police station, it's driven by best practices to some degree. How many police officers do you have? How many people live in the town? How many? And so then it's kind of like, there are national standards that say you need this many square feet. And then there are safety standards. This is the safest way to lay it out. So you kind of, it gets driven then somewhat by the design firms that they build police stations, and that's who we hire. And so I get your concern that maybe things slip in and it gets expanded, and it is somebody's job, building committee and the appropriate authority to approve it, to say, let's hold that back. I get that. I would say, for example, I do remember a discussion in the past even about, because we've spent money on a shooting range before. And in that instance, it pays for itself pretty quickly when your alternative is renting space at a shooting range out of town and then paying the officers overtime and having to cover shifts with overtime every time they go shoot, as opposed to now, during the shift, if it's slow, they can get pulled off one at a time even and do their shooting and their, so.
Well, yeah, but
Some of that-
going back to, when I was at the police meeting,
Yeah.
second one, I presented all the documentation to support why you only need to be trained once, I think it's every 6 months, twice a year, to be trained to meet the qualifications. And we got a shooting range for $3 million that's going to be there every day, all day, could be used. Doesn't make, to me, it goes, why would you want to do that? Paying that one day where they go off campus and they go to, I guess, what's the, Devon, the military?
Fort Devon.
Yeah, they do it
It's
there.
outdoor.
You could go out for a day, you get your training, you sign the document, you got your one day. And that was my point, because I verified it with the police chief, who I didn't even raise the question to him. I said to him, how long would you, and he gave me exactly the numbers that I had already found in my research. So that was just a point. I had my say, I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I
Thank you. Bye-bye.
comment, I want to,
I know I'm going to be hearing from you soon.
Jim?
Mr. McNiff, I just want to agree with you that I have experience making such capital plans in a company, and there are best practices, and we have a centralized authority, and it's very clear who the decider is. It's a completely different story in government. The decision-making authority is distributed, and I think it's already been pointed out that makes it more complicated. There's more to keep track of. And I looked up the quote, often attributed to Winston Churchill: "Democracy is the worst form of government except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. So it does get frustrating. I sympathize with you, and my question to you is if you considered volunteering to be on a committee or to run for
No,
office.
actually, someone's asked me that before. I don't know if you've noticed, I've been writing letters to the editor at the BCAT, and he's publishing every one of my, he's done my last 7 letters. I mean, there again, there's probably 25 people reading it, but it's just a point of me getting out what I thought was going on and the issues. But I think it's better for, you need somebody from the outside. I know what you just said about it. I believe there's somebody has to be outside of it. That kind of feeds back, like holds a mirror, maybe, that you think about it twice. Because if I'm in it, then it's, you know, put the wagons around and it's done. And that's not, I'd rather be on the outside at this one. I did serve as a board of trustees in my town when I came from New York. I've been on a board of my condo so I know you have I know what your job is, but you have it with $500 million that just blows me away as to what
It's a
your
lot.
challenges are.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
In this case, we've hired an expert project manager, and I think you can bring concerns to the building committee directly.
Oh, yeah, I've been.
We'll try to get those in
I've been writing
circulation.
to them. They know my name.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I mean, the questions he posed today, he actually wrote an email or a message to us, well, yesterday or day before yesterday,
Yeah.
asking these exact same questions, so.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
It's a good place for it,
Carefully
yeah.
coming up with the responses for you.
Thanks.
We appreciate you being
Is this your
involved.
stuff?
No, that's not
Okay,
mine.
just want to make sure.
It's Terry's.
That's mine.
Okay.
Anybody else for public participation for anything not on the agenda? See no hands. All right. I don't have any announcements. I think we can move on to the building project update and kind of one of the 2 reasons for our discussion. Bear with me, and I'm going to, Chris Campbell. See. Oh, hold on, your volume is at,
You can use the mouse, Doug, and turn up the volume. Wait, you already did?
give me 1 second, Chris.
I turned it down
How about that, Chris? Can we hear, can you hear us?
That's the speaker.
Right there, Terry. You would never yell at you.
Be surprised.
John, you got any,
You're allowed to touch the mics.
The audio.
We have this
Touch these.
problem.
Volume on that?
yeah, we had this, oh, it might be that, yeah.
This one?
It's not coming through the TV, it's coming through the,
I'm not sure I'm doing this right, John.
Let's see. Chris, can you try again?
Here,
Barely.
say something again, Chris. You're really quiet.
Saying they can't see the video, but you haven't put anything up yet, I don't think.
They should be able to see us.
All right.
it's a BCAT issue, I don't really know. So are you saying you can't see the screen?
Oh, you know what, Doug, we're probably using, you mind if I go over there?
Huh? Yeah,
You mind if I go over there?
no?
We used to.
Go anywhere you want.
It's not plugged in.
Wrong source.
That should be right.
Better now, Chris?
Megan says she can see.
Oh, so we have
something.
somebody else watching that can see, Chris. Now he's muted.
Yes, make it unmute, see if we can hear her. So maybe it's. Terry, can you see?
Catherine, did you hear? I just have my,
Talk and see.
Yeah, hold on.
yeah, I can see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're.
I see me.
User error.
Nick Ward says, I think.
Something on your end.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
I haven't shared anything yet. If you can see the meeting room, then you're seeing what we're seeing.
Still worried about the volume.
Megan said she's going to try and unmute and talk.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Megan.
So we can hear Megan.
Chris, we can hear Megan very clearly.
He said thumbs up.
I think it's a Chris problem. I'm sorry, buddy.
All right, thumbs up there.
All right, now back to my original challenge. Let's try this.
This will really work for town meeting.
That's great, isn't it?
We just got to pay $1 million so we can have electronic.
All right. So I do have a quick few slides to kind of cover the discussion. Some of it is obvious review for this group because we've kind of been involved, but for anybody watching and just to catch people up, I thought we would do a quick review and then just a discussion of what it is we're thinking and looking for. We are at approximately a $340 million project. That's the estimate right now. It's going to go to cost estimators again by middle of July, I believe. And so by the time this comes to town meeting for any vote, we'll have certainly a solid number, and that will be a not to exceed number in the warrant. That does average out to about $1,100 a year for the average taxpayer, the average residential taxpayer in town. So it is a big number, and we recognize that. Now I don't know why I can't advance. Nothing's working. This is a little bit of a design that you can see there have been some changes from the last time the public was shown this, maybe at town meeting, or previous to that at the earlier meetings, where you see the addition here on the side has taken a little different shape. It fits the space a little bit better. You can see the open space here is really where the parts of the existing building will be demolished in this plan. The buildings along here on the up the hill, the upper part of the plan are there now. This is the cafeteria area, and I'm turned around a little, but district offices and BCAT is in here. So these facilities will be renovated and brought up to current code with HVAC and mechanicals. And in the back, you see the 2 gymnasiums that are existing. They will remain and be brought up to code and made accessible. This is the existing auditorium. Again, that one needs a little more work than the gyms do to be made accessible, but it will be renovated and made accessible with all new and up-to-code mechanicals. There's a little bit of an addition in this area to make everything flow together and to have a main entrance. And then you see the mass here is the new square footage that is all of the high school itself, what you would think of with all the classrooms and offices and academic spaces, labs, and so forth. So,
Doug, what's the right kind of behind the auditorium towards the gyms, that kind of tall-looking piece right there?
That's the fly space for the stage.
yeah, that's there now.
Oh, it
It's
is?
a little raised spot
okay.
over the stage.
Okay.
And you can see, here, there's a little bit of a walkway that joins so that we have better accessibility. In the earlier drawings, you kind of had to go all the way around to get from this side to this side if you had class. Now you can come across. And there are some nice features that'll make it very usable. The cafeteria ends up in this area down on the ground floor. It's actually a 4th floor. And it's adjacent to the gyms, which I think is kind of a nice space, and it does provide for some outdoor eating areas and makes it accessible to the gyms if you had things that went from the gym into a cafeteria kind of setting. So just wanted to blow that up and kind of show a little more. You can certainly look on the high school building project website and get a better idea of the details of these plans as they develop. So I think this is it's interesting because you can get lost in the price and you can get lost in the beauty of the new construction, which it really is a new high school in all senses of the word when you talk about classroom space and lab space and educational space, library, all of that. But in this entire plan, you have about 161,000 square feet of brand new space. You also have about 203,000 square feet of renovation of existing space that we were able to save. So we've heard a lot of feedback from people saying, why can't you just renovate the existing facility? And we are able to renovate 200,000+ square feet of that existing facility. It turns out that the portion that you see under demolition below, the 158,000 square feet, really would cost more to renovate than it would to demolish and build new. So it's important to keep in mind that we are doing a large renovation, and during the design process to this point, we've talked a lot about high school and non-high school space. But the reality is, if you go back to that picture I just showed, we're responsible for all of that space, and all of that space needs new HVAC, new mechanicals, and needs to be brought up to code and made accessible. And so whether it's because it's a classroom or because it's office space, we still need to bring all of it up to current code and make it accessible. I think we've talked a lot about the need for change. We have a good outer structure and engineering infrastructure of a building with aging infrastructure in terms of the mechanical systems. The heating system, the HVAC system is well beyond its expected life, and it needs to be replaced. And unfortunately, replacing that triggers a lot of code upgrades, and it makes us bring the entire 300,000+ square feet up to current code, and that's expensive. So again, we've heard discussions about why don't you just renovate the building, and as part of the feasibility study, we did ask the firm to talk to us about what it would cost to renovate, and the estimate on that is right at $330 million. So it's very clear that to just take exactly what we have now and satisfy the code and replace the HVAC systems, we would still spend $330 million on that. So it's extremely expensive, but it's not much difference between that and the $340 million that we're talking about, with significant different outcome as far as what we get for the dollar. Again, you know, if you go and look at the building website, you'll see we're talking about state-of-the-art science labs, robotics labs, AI labs, modern classrooms, natural light, but also, and again, I think it's been not focused on because we were talking about a high school, but it involves moving what is the Burlington Early Childhood Center from its current location within that building. It is in a section of the building that will be demolished, into what is now the cafeteria area of the high school, and that allows for a complete design and making it an early childhood center. So currently the Burlington Early Childhood Center is housed in a collection of classrooms that were high school classrooms, and they don't have proper bathroom facilities for children that age and size. It really is not designed as a childhood center. It was just available space, and this allows us to have an actual facility that's designed to be an early childhood facility. Another plus that I think is coming out of this is a better traffic flow on campus. You hear a lot of people concerned about long queuing of cars for drop-off and pickup and interacting with the buses, and this does provide for off-street kind of bus parking while students get on and off, and separates the traffic flow in most of the campus, and that'll be helpful. On the community side, we still have a 750-seat auditorium/theater. It will be better isolated from academic spaces, so it'll be much more usable by the community without feeling like the entire building is then accessible because you open up the auditorium for a program or an event. And so that provides for better security for the building and for students if something was going on during the school day. And it also provides MIAA level athletic facilities, and this does include bathrooms at Varsity Field, which is something that has been definitely needed and asked for by the community for some time.
Doug, can I ask a question?
Yes.
How many students is it being built for?
1,100.
Catherine? So
1,100.
Catherine Bond, 1,100.
And is that, how many are expected to be there? Is that what the
So,
current student body is, or?
The current student body is around 950-ish. And as you probably have heard, we're following MSBA process, and I think their recommendation was 1,000. Our concern is that we want to make sure that we do have room for growth. 100 students isn't a lot. It's not a lot of space, but we wanted to make sure we could accommodate some sort of growth if there is, because, there seem to be newer, larger homes coming in, and even though we know people aren't having 4 and 5 children, we just wanted to make sure that if we want something that we're building for the next 50 years, we have no idea there may be some population boom 25 years from now, and we don't want to be in a situation where we don't have enough space, because that's going to be a problem.
So there's some leeway, but not a lot of leeway.
Correct.
For the population boom, potentially. Okay.
Yeah, it certainly fits within the MSBA,
Yes.
what their prediction is.
And they have
Gives a
formulas.
little- Yeah.
Yeah, they have formulas, sorry, through the chair. They have strict formulas that they use. So when we were going through the Fox Hill building project, again, we kind of had the same concern that we were afraid that they were restricting, the size of the building and what if we had growth. So, but they do have a formula, and it's very, I guess it has a lot of different aspects into it, taking into account, again, current population, what they predict, how many children people will have, et cetera. And they put that number in, and that's what they tell you. And if it's an MSBA project, it is what it is.
Okay.
And if you want more, you pay for it.
Thanks.
But this is not an MSBA.
It is not.
So what guidelines is MSBA giving us, saying that you should have it for an increased student body, but we're not following their guidelines?
Well, again, we know, you can answer that too, because you're
Yeah.
more familiar with it.
Yeah, so I think, the student body right now is 950. It has fluctuated over the last several years. I think there's projections, and apologies, I don't remember what Dr. Conti uses. It's what all schools use. I think the number includes an assumption that if we're going to do this, we want to have appropriate space, right? So the building committee directed us to say, design it for 1,100 people.
Again, it's not an MSBA project,
Right.
so
So
they're
the
not
MS
telling us what to
right.
do. But we know kind of what the numbers have been or can be. You can use their numbers and go online and look at it and use their calculations as to what we should be doing.
And their numbers are saying we should be
It's similar to what
getting a bigger school.
we don't want, right, we don't, again, we're going to build a school for the amount of students we have now and building in a little cushion. It's not a big cushion. I mean, think, you divide it by, how many classrooms we try to have 18 students per classroom. Divide that by 150, 100 students. It's really not a lot of space that we're adding into for that amount of students. It's not like right now we have a school for 2,000 students. We're not filling it, which is part of the reason that we keep getting turned down by MSBA. We're not outgrowing the space.
Great.
And there are many other schools that will always be ahead of us because they are outgrowing the space.
So if there's another baby boom, we're going to run out of space, but we can't predict it.
So one of the things that communities are grappling with is the MBTA
Community.
community, and that you're going to be required to provide more housing, and that is causing a lot of consternation in towns because they don't know what's going to happen. And so I think prudently, the building committee has said, okay, we're at 950 to 1,000, let's have a buffer. And that was literally the debate. I don't think it's being dictated by the MSBA. It's not being dictated by anything other than prudence.
Good. Anybody else? So generally, energy efficiency, we're certainly targeting a LEED certification. All of the classrooms will have windows with natural light. Many of the existing classrooms have no windows. They're internal rooms with concrete walls and no windows. So if you haven't been in the high school in a while, it's worth walking around and seeing. And importantly, accessibility. So the high school feels wide open, and when you look down those long halls, it's like, it looks wide and great, but those long main streets, as they call them, are very steep and are not ADA compliant. And in order to make them such, if we were going to do a remodel of the existing building, that's where much of your money comes in, is my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And through the chair?
Yes.
Is it, 7 or 9 different second floors that aren't connected?
So there's actually 13 different elevations within the building, and so when you're on a portion of the second floor, that's wonderful, but you might have to go upstairs to go downstairs to get to another level on the second floor. It's just, I don't know how many of you have been in the high school. It's extremely challenging from I want to get from here to there. It's one thing if you're an able-bodied individual. If you're not, it's extremely challenging.
I'm going to skip that. So we have, as a building committee, there were quite a few community meetings. They've been fairly well attended. I think the attendance is pretty good when you add up all of the individuals that were at different meetings. We've had several, and so any one meeting hasn't been very well attended. I think we had a couple in the high school auditorium that were pretty well attended. You do tend to see the same faces, but there are some others that come in. The abutters have been very active and involved, and I think they've made some strong points, and I think the committee did a good job of responding to their concerns, and many of their concerns kind of drove the design and drove the final decision even. And so it has certainly been a transparent process. I think there were unfortunately, there are some people that still don't realize that we're talking about a high school, and I think that's a bigger townwide problem that we have to think about, because I don't know how many other places you can announce it or post it, or, we definitely miss the local hometown newspaper that everybody subscribes to and sees newspaper articles, but getting the word out continues to be important, and I think the committee has been very responsive when people have asked questions. So, what's next? We expect updated cost estimates by mid to late July. Is that true, Terry?
So we're in the process of, we're in schematic design right now. Now that we have a preferred option, the intention right now is for that schematic design package to go to estimators and a construction manager on the 21st of July. We expect to have those estimates reconciled by the 13th of August.
Okay.
To provide to the school building committee for them to either recommend it or say no. Assuming they approve it, it would go to the selectmen, the select board, to be put, and this is where I get a little out of my depth, but to put it on a warrant for town meeting. We will look to revise that estimate with our consultants based on what the number is. So, value engineering, I don't know if folks are familiar with that term. If we say, right, well, we need to cut $12 million out of it, well, how do we do that? And so through the course of mid-August through mid-September, we will work on that estimate, but the intention is at least 2 weeks before town meeting, there is a not-to-exceed number, but the number that we come up with in mid-August is a not-to-exceed number as well. So we're only going down, we're not going up. So that's the plan that we have in place. That's the plan I've communicated to the school building committee. That's what the architect is working towards. So there's two principal estimators that deal with school building projects, and so getting them on a specific date is really important, and we've done that. We have a ton of interest in the construction field. We have 7 firms that have pre-qualified to look to do this job. They will be providing their own estimate as well. And then we get together with, the designer's estimator, the construction manager, you reconcile that number. That's what will get presented to the school building committee and ultimately the select board in the town.
Excellent, thank you.
If that makes sense, if there's questions there, I'm happy to answer them. It's somewhat of a prescribed process in my brain, but that doesn't mean it translates well.
So, so from there, we assume that we would see a warrant article at September 29th town meeting, asking town meeting to approve the borrowing of the money. And so that would be a not to exceed number. And that would be contingent on a debt exclusion being approved by the voters of the town. So we've already discussed, and it's pretty obvious with a project of this size that you're not going to be able to do that without a debt exclusion. And so that is going to be a requirement. So anything that town meeting approves in September will be contingent on an approval by the town of debt exclusion.
And excuse me, when would that vote be?
So
This is the next bullet.
it's the, yeah, I believe that, no, you're moving right, you're making my point.
Okay.
So the townwide vote would be in the fall. We have tried to figure out what a good time, at least from this standpoint. Town Hall 1 met last week, and we were just kind of talking about that. Terry and the design team have asked to, they've said it would be helpful in the flow of the project to have an approval before Thanksgiving, a debt exclusion approval, so that we don't lose momentum. At some point, they've done their job and gotten us to the point of financing the thing, and so Thanksgiving is kind of a target to have that approval. If you look at the calendar around that time, Saturday, November 15th seems to make some sense. We could maybe go a little bit earlier. We had asked John Denizio to check with town council, and so now we were thinking it was 45 days that the select board has to announce or post an election, but it's 35 days, is that right? So you got a little wiggle room after town meeting, but November 15th, Saturday, November 15th was a date that was thrown around as a good date for a townwide special election. We don't have any other elections, so sometimes you would wait until we had an election going on, but we would have to wait until the town election next spring, and that would certainly, we would start to lose people from the design team, and they'd be assigned to other projects.
I don't think, I can speak for Doran Whittier, I can speak for TAPE, we're committed to this project. What I would say is that if we were to delay a vote for, in your example, 6 months, most folks in the construction industry will say, well, there's escalation, it's 5% a year. I don't need to explain the math to you guys. You know, it's a $340 million project, 5%, you delay 6 months, that, it adds up. And so I thank you for recognizing that we will have other jobs to do, but we're committed to this project. But I certainly believe, you know, living in a town with town meeting and special elections where my town voted through a project, that you build on town meeting says it's the will of the town. Okay, well, let's put it to the town. And so from my perspective, the sooner the better. From everyone's perspective, the sooner likely saves dollars as opposed to waiting, because we're not going to change anything really substantial. From the time we come through with this schematic design, we have a preferred option, we're going to get an estimate on it, that's what it is. We can't say, well, we don't want half of the building. Well, that's not an option. So I'm not sure if I'm making sense. I'm just
No, you're making.
I'm trying to speak to the committee as a whole, and also I've been in your shoes sitting in a town like just questioning how you do it.
Sure.
And so we've spent a lot of time, you know, Doug and I and the committee, Catherine, figuring out, you know, do we go to town meeting first? Do we go to the select board? Do we go to, you know, John, you and I have had this conversation as well, and I think we believe going to town meeting first and then shortly thereafter going to a special election is the right path.
So that would require, assuming we stay on that path, you would need a 2/3 approval by town meeting at the September 29th town meeting to borrow the money contingent on the debt exclusion, a special election in the fall where the residents would be asked to approve a debt exclusion. That's a simple majority of the vote. Assuming, or if that passes, that's a big assumption, but if we move forward and that passes, the detailed design work would start in December of 2025. That would go through December of 2026. Sometime maybe late February of 27, you'd talk about awarding a contract, or?
So the intention right now is to have a construction manager on board. And we intend to do that, and I think I mentioned that as part of obtaining an estimate. By the end of '26, that job under the construction manager would go out to bid to all the different trades. And they bid, you know, concrete, plumbing, electrical, you know, there's 45 different trades, but, you know, they all go out and to buy out the job sometime in that first quarter of 27.
Yeah.
And then start construction activities in the spring of that year. And then that new academic wing would be the first thing that they're building, and that would be available for students to move into that space in the fall of '29. Then they start hopscotching, dealing with the auditorium, the 2 gymnasiums, and the upper buildings. And ultimately, the project, likely from a construction standpoint, finishes in the spring of '31. It's a long project.
Yeah, it's a big project, and it is long with phases and trying to keep the school year going. It would include some intense summer work.
Oh, there'll be multiple summer slammers, that's what they're called, but I think importantly what folks should realize is that we're avoiding the need for swing space. So, you know, the students are going to end up moving into the new school and not going into modulars, double wides that you're paying millions of dollars for, and then just sending them down the road when you're done. It will be challenging, but they're going to move into a new school all at once, as opposed to some sort of piecemeal operation.
Through the chair. I think that number of modulars was around 18 million, and that's just money that's burnt, and
Right.
you get no return on it, other than,
Well, and
students have
that's-
somewhere to sit.
That's if we had the space on the,
Well, and
Exactly.
that's part of, that's one
the
of
other issue,
the considerations of the building committee when we talked about renovating the existing space. I mean, you've seen the building, it's massive. We'd renovate this piece and move kids to modulars here, and then fix this, and grab this piece, and send kids here, and you just hopscotch around the building. It's super challenging, and I don't think anybody on the committee at the time thought that was a worthwhile endeavor, especially taking into account what it costs to do that.
sure, what you end up after that process for the
Yep.
price that you would pay for it. Questions? Are we good?
Yeah, I know, I can't answer it right now. I'll call them back.
So then I would say, coming out of the town hall subcommittee meeting, and I would ask for you guys to have input on that, but we did talk about asking this committee to approve a few things. And one is to approve the plan that's being forwarded by the high school building committee and school committee so far, to say, we would recommend that we keep moving forward with that plan that the building committee has chosen. Two would be that we would recommend that a warrant article be presented at the September 29th town meeting, asking for approval to borrow a not-to-exceed amount that will be specified after further cost estimates and before town meeting. And that be contingent on a debt exclusion being approved by the town. And then three, we would recommend asking the select board to put a debt exclusion question on a special election in November. Do we have any questions about those? And subcommittee, do you have any input on?
There was one other tiny one, which was also a warrant article to fund the election somehow. We discussed how that might get funded. I can't quite remember where we ended up, if that was temporarily coming out of somewhere and then being replaced, or
We
end
will have to talk, if there is and we didn't end up with enough, I think, for a recommendation. But if there is to be a special election, we have to figure out how to pay for it. And that's something, we have to meet in July, so that's something that maybe we can take up in July, because we'll meet anyway for our annual July meeting, to just figure out where that money will come from. It could feasibly come from our contingency, our Ways and Means contingency fund. It's not what we've generally used it for, but we could present something. So we have to talk about that, because you just have to figure out, free cash isn't certified yet. And so we'll have to figure out how to cover it until we could replenish whatever money we used from free cash. Questions, anything from Town Hall 1? Any?
Again, we had good conversation. There was a number of us that attended. I think there were six of us, along with John. And again, kind of walking through the steps of each, the main pieces kind of at the start being, do we, go to the voters first, go to town meeting first, and then do the debt election, or beforehand? And again, we certainly feel the right step was taken and recommendation was made that this should be a town meeting. Town meeting should vote one way or another, and if so approved, it should move forward to a debt exclusion vote. We should keep the momentum going. Wait too long, again, there are other things besides just losing momentum. I mean, we've also funded our team for a period of time, and we'd have to figure out how to continue to fund the team that we have with us until a townwide election in April. So it makes a lot of sense to do it as a special election. Yes, we got involved in the, where free cash is not certified, how we vote on it. It's going to be about 30,000, we feel, right now, but we don't have that full but we've talked to John about how we go about that. The committee, after, an hour and a half discussion, was unanimous in deciding this is the best route from a financial standpoint of how to move forward with it. So I was certainly on board with that process.
Anybody else? I know we have a hand raised. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I feel like I can see what's happening. Chris? Barely.
Speak up.
No.
Nope.
That is bigger.
Yes, a little bit. David, can you?
Mail-in
I can,
and
so
early
make sure
voting.
that there's early voting.
Yes.
So I think one of the pieces that we just brought up tonight, Chris, I don't know if you heard, was we don't have to wait the 45 days. So again, once town meeting approves it, the selectmen then have to move forward to vote to have a special election. So the timing, when you look at it from September 29th to what we were talking about, November 15th, is about 45 days. So, and then there's a certain amount of time before that that we have to make sure that there is early voting, because we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to vote on this. John is just saying now that it's 35 days after the selectmen move. So we do have some time, but
Calendar days.
keeping it on that, what?
Calendar days.
Yeah, but keeping it even at that later, not the later, but the November 15th still gives us more time to get it one for that date, because it's only 35 days. So I think we should be fine with that, but we'll follow it up.
Anybody else on the committee? And Bob, I see your hands up. Just give me a minute. Anybody else from the committee?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I'd rather have Bob come
Sure.
in first.
Sure.
I don't know.
Bob?
Scott. Bob Kuna? Is that who we
Is
got?
that Bob Kuna or Bob Young?
And you're muted.
You're muted.
Maybe they're just waving.
Went to the bathroom.
That's why I wanted,
like your humor.
I wanted him to go first. I figured we'd be able to go get a Coke and a sandwich.
All right. Oh, he's undone. What you got?
Okay, zero.
Speak louder.
Okay, let me turn up my volume. Okay, better.
We're going to try. It's really, we're having some technical difficulties.
Translate.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity and everybody's effort. I had my hand up earlier, and I appreciate the time. I have some ideas and thoughts about how to get the word out. And you were saying, obviously, on what that is, and so here we go. What about a mailer, direct mail, postcard? Who is this? Do that on other circumstances. I want to mention that. Secondly, I've seen in the previous town I've lived in, and maybe I've seen it here, when we get our quarterly property bill, sometimes there's a little flyer in there. Perhaps that could be something that could aid in as well. And if people are getting digital bills, have a digital flyer, something that they would save. And the third thing was a banner on town common. So those are the thoughts I had to try to get the word out to all. Thank you.
So I'll summarize, but I appreciate it, Bob. He was commenting back to the discussion of just we want to make sure that we're getting the word out to everyone and that people are aware of the project and aware of what's coming. And so he suggested a mailer, a townwide mailer, which I believe I'll let you answer in a second, but I believe that's in process. But also including it in the tax bill. He is correct. Sometimes we do get a flyer when you get the quarterly tax bill or the water bill. And at least it can say, hey, go to this website, and just another way to get the word out. And then a banner on the common there at the corner, and that's another possibility. I would also think that our community outreach working group is going to have some things that July 4th and anytime that there are big gatherings of the community through the summer. So thank you, Bob.
There's no parade.
Yeah. Catherine,
Yeah, through the
just,
chair. So we are doing mailing to all of the community before it goes out to the debt exclusion vote, if we get that far through town meeting. And again, like you said, our working group, we have other ways. I mean, I think, Bob, you mentioned a few good ideas that we had not discussed, so we'll take note of that. But we've talked about ways to get word out to, elementary school parents and the middle school parents. I mean, all parents in general, but people in town, just ways to hit the different groups. I think the hardest group and challenge is, I'll say the elderly, because like I said, I miss the paper newspaper too. And a lot of people don't like technology and don't want to use technology, and that seems to be our way that we're doing it. And mailings, individual mailings are expensive. And, we're trying to stay within our budget of the 1.5 that town gave us. So we're trying to be frugal on that way too. So, like I said, Bob, the banner, is probably something people drive through the center of town. That may be something we can do that, I don't know what they cost, but maybe we can get someone to donate a portion of it or whatever. But yeah, we definitely are trying to get the word out and the best way we can in discussing it in our working group, so.
Can I just add to that just a little bit?
Please.
In terms of timing of a mailer, town meeting being representative is a captive audience, and we will certainly be providing them with information through the process that we have. I think if we were to get through town meeting, that is when we would be sending out a mailer to all residents that outlines, this is the number, this is the project, here are the benefits, here's why we're doing this, and here's what the impact is, because that's what people care about.
sure.
And sending it before then, I don't think has a lot of value. I think we can certainly educate town meeting members, and many of them are on many different, I'm sure some of you are town meeting members. I was with land use on Monday. There's 7 members there. So I think we're actively engaging with members of town meeting, and we will continue to do that. I love Bob's suggestion of a banner, but recognize that the school building committee is there to provide facts and say, this is the project. It's not the school building committee's job to say, come and vote yes. It's a sort of delicate balance.
We're actually not allowed to do that.
We're not
We're
allowed.
not allowed to.
Yeah, that was actually my question.
You're not allowed to do that.
You're not allowed to.
We're not allowed to do that.
You cannot do advocacy at all. You
No.
can merely do advertising and state.
Yep. These
have
are
to state the facts.
These are the
There's
facts.
the facts.
People can form committees outside of our group, if people are very passionate about it, to get word out.
And I assume that's a limitation on all town committees, like, Ways and Means couldn't send out an advocacy letter, I assume, right?
No.
So that's, it would have to be someone, a group independent of any.
Correct.
Quote official town committee.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
That's exactly right.
So anyone interested? Let us know.
Not allowed to talk about that now.
I believe Bob did mention for people who get digital bills or digital tax
Yeah.
bills, including digital flyers. So
Sure.
Non-physical.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that suggestion. I wasn't aware that there was mailings and that you could do something like that. We would happily provide you with a flyer that has the facts of this is the project.
Yeah, and here's the website.
Yeah.
Here's a QR code.
And-
Were you
and a
aware?
little
I mean,
plug,
that's the whole thing. No-
bhsbuildingproject.com.
I mean, I think there are a lot of people aren't even aware there's a BHS building project.
Right.
And I think putting it in a tax bill might be the way to just kind of get word out, buzz.
It'd be simple as a link to
Yeah.
the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have QR codes, we have little things that we use all the time, and you take a photo of it, and there it is. So,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to just back up a little bit. So we're getting into a lot of how to publicize, advertise, support. But So this is a very informative session for Ways and Means, and I don't really know if you want to vote on something or not, but I think to the public speaker's point earlier, there are two things that I think Ways and Means really deals with almost simultaneously. One is merit. Is it meritorious? And you have to have that in the back of your head because you're not going to bother with how do I pay for it if I don't think it's worth doing. Common sense. So we've had discussions in the Town Hall 1 meeting, and many of us have been to the building committee meetings and seen the presentations, and you did a lot tonight, which really go to the heart of, is it meritorious? What about it is great? What about it might not be so great? And we've had some discussion about that. We haven't had a lot of discussion about really financial impact or fundability other than it's going to cost this much if you spend that much. So I just want to make a comment on my view as a Ways and Means member from the point of view of the merit. We looked, the building committee, and many of us went to all of the forums at all these different options that were out there, including a complete renovation to a complete atom bomb to blow up the varsity field, you name it. And I think...
I wasn't going to blow up the field.
Sure you were. Yeah, I know.
No one
I saw it
prefers that.
coming. I saw that plume coming down from across the street. So after a lot of to and fro with the residents and within the committee and whatnot, they arrived at what was called AR8, which is an addition and a renovation combined on campus, and everything else gets pushed aside. So from my personal point of view, the rework of AR8, and I still wish we could find a new name for it because it's changed quite a bit. It's dramatically improved from just one gigantic wing sticking out the side of the building. To my mind, it has a lot of merit, and it has a great deal to do with the fact that the renovation is of spaces that by and large, it's getting rid of the worst with the demo, which is these interior classrooms, which are really not good. And a lot of residents keep saying, you know, what's wrong with what's there? Well, what's wrong with what's there is the part that, from an academic point of view, the worst part of the building is actually in that academic section that's closed in. And it all would have to be reworked extensively. And if you just did that as a renovation and not something like this, you're not going to end up with as good an academic facility, which is what this is all about. Secondly, it is a campus to the town, and at some point you would have to renovate or get rid of all those spaces that the town uses a lot. The fact that you have two gyms, well, the rubber gym is where we have our elections, just as a minor point. So there's a lot to that facility that is very valuable to the town, and it's aging infrastructure. So sooner or later, if you did nothing else, you would want to address the rest of the campus. And so when you added it all up, the AR rate that you've put up there tonight and we've got, in my mind, is very meritorious. So the second part of the equation is, how much is it really going to cost, and is it actually financially viable in the climate that we're in, say, for the next 5 years? And that's something that we have to all think about a lot, and we get a lot of pushback on that from some of the residents. So the first thing that I think we as a committee have unanimously agreed to is there's no way in hell you touch anything like this without a debt exclusion, because you'd blow up your levy limit. There's just no way on earth. So you can set aside the concerns about cratering the operating budget by overexpending on debt with the debt exclusion, and that's what that'll do for us. It also serves as a proxy to the public, where they get to say, which was one of the criticisms on Fox Hill, you know, you should have gone out to the public for a vote and done the debt exclusion, and that would be their proxy for saying whether they even like the project. Well, for this project, that is absolutely what we would give them. They, you know, the public, those that choose to vote, the majority is going to determine whether or not just about whether it's a debt exclusion, but whether it gets built at all on this current ticket. So I am in favor of doing that because I think it's too dangerous for Ways and Means to try to sort of influence the decision that, yeah, you should just do this. What we can influence and what we owe is really the financial viability over the debt schedule for the next at least decade. And so we're going to meet some more on that. We've got a thumbnail machine that allows us to play out for all the projects that are now encumbered, for the ones that we know that are going to turn up, Fox Hill when we get a final number, Police when we get a final number, maybe there'll be something for Fields and this building, and we roll that into the plan. We're going to get a real clear idea based on the parameters that we're willing to live with as Ways and Means, which is the budget increases on a year-over-year, how much new growth we really expect, and any other unforeseen circumstances, the affordability. And I think we need to do a little more work there, but based on all the calculators that you guys have done, some of us have done, Joan's done, it's affordable, but it's expensive. So the taxpayers really, I think we're going to give them the chance to say, is it worth it to me? I could afford it, but is it even worth it to me? We're not going to blow up the town's finances, and that's one of the things that I think we do need to make a recommendation with the voters, because the implication of Jim, I've forgotten his last name. McNiff. Excuse me, the implication of that is it's $500 million, and who can afford that? Well, first of all, we wouldn't do it if we couldn't afford it. And the way we make it affordable is what I like to call pacing and spacing, keeping the ratio of the debt service inside of the operating budget manageable, and looking at closely at what our year-on-year increases will need to be. I think we have a thumbnail on that much now that it's up there. You know, we're going to hit, you know, easily 8% of our budget will go to debt, principal, and interest for a while. I think John will tell me it's probably closer to 9 in the beginning. It'll taper off eventually, but based on the numbers we've got, I would vote favorably to bring it to the street, first of all, to bring it to town meeting and tell them that you can't afford this. Your operating budget can't support it if you're willing to pay for it, and therefore it's serviceable as debt. And therefore, I would recommend that you do the 2/3, get the 2/3 vote, and then bring it to the street and see if they want to pay for it, you know, on the basis of is it worth it to each taxpayer. So I think Ways and Means' job is twofold, meritorious and fundability. I think we've done a lot of the homework on both fronts. My personal feeling is this is a much better project than where I thought we were headed back a year ago. It really solves a lot of problems, not the least of which is we fixed the infrastructure. And the point I'd like to make on that is if you did nothing but say we're going to wait, we don't have MSBA, we don't need to do it today, we've already taken 13 years to get this far, what's wrong with another 5? Well, it isn't getting any better. The building just isn't getting any better. And if you want to fix the infrastructure of that building, this is what you've got to do. And it wouldn't matter an iota if the $1,100 a month to the average taxpayer, okay, 5 years from now, it might be, $1,200 a month, but sooner or later, you're either going to destroy the complex and not have it serviceable, or you're going to do the renovations that are needed. And we get the needed renovations. We get the heating system. We, in fact, break the heating system into 2 pieces. We get the ventilation that we need new. We get interior lighting. We get the minor renovations, essentially, to the gymnasium areas, and to the point of spending money you don't need to spend. I think in the gyms, what doesn't need to be done won't get touched. We'll use them the way they are. They're good, for the most part. So that's why I support this, and I think it's a little bit complex. I think Ways and Means has a duty to look at both. Like I said, you wouldn't fund something if you didn't believe in it. If you believe in it, then can you fund it? And I think the answer to both is yes and yes, if the taxpayers are willing to support, that kind of an uptick in their burden. And not all of them will, but we need to find out where the mood is. So that's my speech. Thank you.
Just point of fact, we're talking about $1,100 a year.
Right. What did I say? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say a month? Did I?
It's already gotten cheaper.
Whoa.
Look, I just saved you so much money.
See, Ed and I planned that. That's a part of the skit.
What a great way to normalize that number.
John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there's a few arguments that I think we need to provide some facts for as part of, educating everyone on this. One is based on our usual assumptions, is about $24 million a year in debt service is what we're talking about for this. And that's what that $1,100 a year is going to cover. That is the whole point of that. I think we need to have a good discussion about the fact that we are doing this at MSBA. I think Catherine, explained a lot of that, but I think that's going to be the constant question of, why aren't we getting $100 million from the state to help out on this? Because that is pretty painful, obviously. And, the other one that came up in some of the meetings were people saying, with all the uncertainty in the world, which can be stated at any point in time in history probably, why don't we wait X years and do it then when presumably everything will settle down? So I think there needs to be a discussion about that, of the potential costs. There's the obvious inflation each year, but then there's also the various cliffs of, when the boiler finally craps out and we're throwing money in to keep it going, or something like that can come up. So I think collectively we have our work cut out. That those kind of things we need to have good explanations for.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that in September, I think we should have that.
Yeah.
Doug, can I just,
Yes.
Chair, can I ask, I wanted to just relay, I understand the MSBA funding, the core program has been our experience, and I'm not aware of any community that has two projects simultaneously in the grant program. So thankfully Fox Hill is, but it probably precludes the high school from ever being considered until Fox Hill actually is completed, which I believe is 2028-ish. I think the kids move in 27 and it'll be closed out. I know that point that people wait. And it's a very competitive program, and I think Catherine mentioned, we have a 360,000 square foot building that was designed for 2,000 students. You've got 950 to 980 there right now. The MSBA is going to look at other buildings before ours, and there are many that are as old, right, that are end of life, and they're going to jump in front, which is what we've experienced for the last 12 years. And so I wanted to give you that as just a point of fact. That's what it is. It's just a fact.
And I may, through the chair.
Sure.
And to your point where you're talking about, let's say the boiler systems go, I personally, if I had children in the school system, last thing I want is to have us be in an emergency situation where now we're having to do all these repairs, and we get over that, what is the 30% rule, and we're back to square one, where you're now renovating the current building, not improving anything, not getting the new classroom space. I mean, in putting people in modules, the kids in modules, it's not an ideal situation to be emergency versus being proactive and trying to solve that problem ahead of time. So.
Anyone else? So, I'm sorry. Miss Monica. Please.
Would you like my chair?
Yeah, I want your chair, Ted.
Yeah, all right. Anything for you.
Oh, you're going to regret that.
Yeah, you are going to regret that.
Miss Monaco is our vice chair.
I just, because this is a public forum and people may be paying attention, I wanted to take the opportunity to make a couple of points. One point is that when we began requesting help from MSBA, which was, 13 years ago? We needed it then, and we didn't get it. And so now here we are 13 years later, and it was mentioned that the 30% rule. So if we would just try to fix the heating system and air conditioning and all of that stuff, it would exceed the 30% rule, and we'd have to get into full compliance. The problem is, it's physically impossible to bring that building into full compliance without spending as much money, or almost as much money, as this project costs. And part of that money would be spent on trailers, portable classrooms, a total waste, and a bad thing for kids. You know, you don't want your kids going to high school in a portable classroom. But the other thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, and here I'm showing my longevity, is that we've had a science department head now for, I don't know, how many years has she been the department head? I don't know, at least 5, maybe 7. Before that, we had another department head for a long time, like close to 20 years. Before that, another department head. And the science labs have been useless since the guy 3 science heads ago. Pipes blew up under the sinks because of chemicals that shouldn't have gone down the sinks. And the science labs they're just, I mean, they're not, I can't even call them inadequate. They're like non-existent. The kids cannot use science labs. We don't have them for our kids. And we need them. It isn't fair. You know, it isn't fair to the students going through high school that their science labs are non-existent, and that their classrooms are dungeons, and that there's no windows. And I mean, my 4 kids, most of my 15 grandkids have gone through that building. But it's time for the new generation to have some good space and some working labs and a good heating and ventilation system. So that's my 2 cents. I just wanted to really make the point that we cannot fix that building. So if something happens, triggers that the boilers don't work or whatever, we're stuck. So I think this is more of a necessity than a lot of people realize. And it has been for over a decade. So my 2 cents, thank you.
Thank you. So what's the will of the committee? We really are, nothing requires us to pass anything or recommend anything. I would like to see support from this committee for moving forward. The select board certainly they're in charge of their thing, and so they know what's coming to them. But I would like to send out the messages that we support this plan moving forward as it's going, and that we think that the town meeting should be asked to approve a borrowing warrant article in September for the cost of this project, and that should be contingent on a debt exclusion at a special election in the fall. Are we comfortable with doing something like that?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. And what I would suggest is, why don't you put up the slide that has the recommendations? Because I think essentially what we would be voting on would be to agree that we like what you said on that slide for recommendations. And as a 5th recommendation, I'd say use a larger font.
I hate sharing the screen. It's the worst part of being chair. So I will read it. Recommend approval of the plan being forwarded by the high school building committee and school committee. Recommend presenting a warrant article at September 29th town meeting asking for approval to borrow a not to exceed amount specified after further cost estimates and presented prior to town meeting. Recommend the select board ask the town if they will support a debt exclusion for the amount borrowed for the project in a special election on November 15th, 2025. We don't have to have a date certain.
So,
That's my question, the dates. Yeah. You want to have dates.
Yeah.
And
so on that, so I think point one, I wouldn't agree to that because I'm not seeing what the high school building committee is recommending. Right, so your first bullet point, we haven't seen that what it is, so I don't think I could recommend it. Second point is good, except it's missing the phrase about contingents on debt exclusion. And I'm fine with the third one, the second and third ones, with or without the date.
Well, so I see your point, except we're pretty clear about what the high school building, I mean, they have selected a plan. They've selected and they're moving forward. We're waiting to get more specific cost estimates.
I guess if somebody had to produce a piece of paper that say what that is, I don't know where I'd find it. That's my only point. It's not that one hasn't been sketched out, isn't well understood,
So
not on a piece of paper.
I think it's on an entire website, but I understand, I get your point. I mean, there was probably too many pieces of paper defining it down to how many bathrooms and sinks there are. Yeah.
Through the chair. So our plan, and I think I've mentioned some of these dates, is we are reconciling these estimates with the construction manager and the estimator on the 13th of August. We have a school building committee meeting on the 14th, where they will then either choose to approve or not that estimate. That is what is going to go to the select board. So I would hope that you could craft language that says, subject maybe to the school committee and the school building committee recommending a number. Right now, we don't have that number other than the present estimate for ARA.
Ed?
So I agree with Roger. Our first responsibility from the bylaws is to make recommendations to town meeting, and I think that there's clearly enough momentum on this project, and clearly it's going to be forwarded, that we should recommend forwarding the question to town meeting. As we get closer to town meeting, there will be refinements to the plan. There's no need to approve the plan, especially if we haven't studied it. And at that time, we can recommend to town meeting that they vote yes to approve it and move on to a vote. At this point, I think what's important is to get the process in motion because it takes so long. And so I would recommend that we, on the first point, just say our recommendation is to move this process forward and put that to town meeting. And I'm perfectly comfortable saying November 15th is our recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. They can adjust from there, but that we looked at the calendar and we decided that was a good date. I'm happy
Sure.
with that recommendation.
And I do understand, and that makes your point a little more clear to me. I totally understand what you're saying. Really, what I would like to see is that we support this continuing to move forward and to go to town meeting. And so if you would be more comfortable, we could move that first bullet out, because really the other two resolve that. Mike?
Through you, I kind of agree, and I recommend approval of the plan. That's a very, very
That's
generic statement. Way too generic.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Well,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
So I would keep the first line with the contingency that we would provide anything that, with the dates coming up, any information that would influence us.
I think it's I think after hearing, I think it's kind of obvious that first bullet point's not necessarily needed at this point. Prior to town meeting, I think we'll need to have a more serious discussion and vote about supporting it.
Well, we've got a warrant in the works.
Right. So I'm on board with that. I do think the next two kind of resolve what the first one was trying to do.
But definitely add that contingency in there, as you'd said in other slides, but it isn't on this slide.
Contingent, yes.
Contingent on the debt, have town meeting approve it contingent upon the debt exclusion passing.
So what, all we have to do is specify in bullet point 2 there, recommendation that the warrant article for borrowing is for the high school building project. That's all we need to say about the high school building.
contingent on the debt.
And
contingent on.
And as contingent. Yep.
So,
That would be great.
can I have a what?
So moved.
Can I have a motion to recommend presenting a warrant article at the September 29th town meeting asking for approval to borrow a not-to-exceed amount to fund the high school building project contingent on a debt exclusion approval by the town in a special election? Does that one work?
That sounds great.
Yep.
And to recommend that the select board ask the town to support or to vote on a debt exclusion for the amount approved by town meeting for the high school building project in a special election on November 15th, 2025.
That sounds great, too.
Is that close enough?
Second.
Did I have it right?
Yes, beautiful.
All in favor? Oh, we have somebody online, so I'm going to have to unshare.
Be Nick Ward.
Chris still
In
there?
trouble if he's raised his
Yes.
hand.
Chris is still there.
Chris, yeah.
So I will say Cheyenne,
Yeah.
Chris Campbell.
Yes.
Oh, now we can hear you.
Yeah, what'd you do?
I don't know what you, and look at
saved
the,
it.
Quiet down, Chris.
and can you show us who our future PHS graduate is then?
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations, that's awesome. Welcome to Ways and Means.
Class of 2043.
Class of 20-something.
Ask, why isn't Chris here?
Mike Hardy,
Get it.
Week old, yes, week and a half.
Frank Monaco,
Yes.
Yes.
Rob Neufeld,
Yes.
Ed Parsons,
Yes.
Roger Riggs,
Yes.
David Tate.
Yes?
I think I have them all. And the chair votes yes.
I vote yes, too.
Oh, John Eiler, that's who I was missing. Sorry, John.
Did you get mine?
Yep.
So is that an 11? It should be a 2.
He did, there was a general ruckus going on, but I said yes twice.
I think we have 10.
Yeah, so that is a 10-0-0
Right.
approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair,
Yes.
one, and Doug, I know you know this, but so you all are aware, I know I am, I'm sure Catherine might be there, she loves meetings. We are meeting with the select board on Monday, the 9th.
Thank you.
I'm sure this topic is going to come up, which I think is why I'm being asked to be there.
Right.
So,
We're hopeful.
So they're also, I mean, they have a meeting this coming Monday, or are you waiting until then to talk? When do you plan to talk to the select board about this?
I believe I'm going to come to the Monday meeting.
This coming Monday, or?
Yes. Okay. Is that okay, John?
Yeah, it was just on as an informational for the select board when Terry first reached out.
Sure. So I will just share that information that's where we're at.
So,
Do you have a sense of, or maybe when the select board is planning to actually vote on whether to have an election?
So Monday will be the first time you're talking about an actual election in September, so there hasn't even been an initial conversation about that yet.
So that might be a warm-up day.
It will be a good chance to get the info out there and let them know what they're going to have to
Probably
keep
not-
in mind.
Probably not the vote is what I'm hearing.
it's either a warm-up or a meltdown.
One or the other.
It's not the first time.
I'll
they
just
do it.
mention, for the public record, one thing we didn't put in our recommendations, which should be obvious to them, is the mechanics of that. It's best to call for an election only if it's necessary, which means they've got a 10-day window, and
yep.
I'm sure you'll take care of that.
Yep. That'll keep you up at night.
So just sort of as information to us, Mr. Chairman, I think, so we're obviously going to meet as a committee for the September town meeting. It'll have a warrant, I don't know what's going to be on it, but this clearly will be probably the feature
Looks like he's falling
piece. So we need to leave enough time for that to drill through probably enough detail about, we'll have cost estimates in August, so we can meet anytime between August 20th and whatever it is in September.
29th, it's the.
Yeah, well, it'd have to be the Wednesday before that. So what we need to do is drill down, I think, on the issues of the borrowing schedule, sort of hone up the parameters around assumptions of budget growth and other projects that we're going to slot in that will be in the debt schedule for sure. And I don't think there's a whole lot of play left in the capital budget that's going to leave a lot of guesswork other than the amounts. But we'll talk about that probably tomorrow.
Yep.
Right. So we do, for the public's information, we do actually have a pretty major meeting about capital budget planning as it integrates with debt schedules and that sort of thing, to do a better job on that or to get more precise. So I think when we meet for the September warrant, we should leave enough time to really drill down on that, to answer in some detail why it financially works. And I'm assuming that the committee is going to answer in great detail the issues about MSBA and why wait, why not wait. I mean, we're not going to address that, I don't think.
Right.
Right.
Well, so to me, I hear Town Hall 1 volunteering to continue to take the lead as a subcommittee on this debt issue.
Well, we'll see what comes out of tomorrow morning.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
we really need to take the thumbnail machinery
Yeah.
and what the capital plan for the next 10 really puts us into for costs and, yearly expenses on debt infrastructure. So, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do that without actually doing a lot more work than using the tools we've got and figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you that the requests we have are more than the capacity we have, so that.
Right. So we got to clear
The easy
decks.
part is we're going to say, this is how much we can afford,
And we need to clear the
and how do we get all this other stuff off there?
All right, we'll talk about that tomorrow morning, so.
Roger?
Just one more timing thing. If Ways and Means meeting to do the steps can be before town meeting has, or the clerk has informational meetings for town meeting members, I think that would be better timing than trying to do it concurrent or after.
Yeah,
Which means closer to the beginning of September,
yeah,
end of August.
yeah, we probably need to work
Just
earlier than
Because,
typical.
we as a fact-finding committee need to be help spreading the facts to town meeting as well as anybody else who will listen.
Okay. All right, you said it, so I'm not going to feel guilty about calling meetings in August.
You shouldn't. I think you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
this
and-
is too big a deal.
Sure, I agree.
And I think maybe asynchronously, we should keep ourselves appraised of the plan as it develops.
Dick?
And I know it's been kind of volunteer, but so Town Hall 1 has taken kind of charge of the debt side, but again, we've been working now for probably 9 months with this small group of Ways and Means people on kind of that debt schedule. And a number of people have been very constant in those. I look at this project, we should probably have some additional voices on whether it's a permanent, committee for this project or whatever. We can certainly take the
Yeah.
lead with it, but whether
We have
we should
used-
have a
right.
few more people, which I think we've had volunteers and they've all been very,
We've tended to have
very good with us.
the
but-
chair and the vice chair and the immediate past chair.
Right.
And you guys.
Right.
And then
So I'd like that to continue.
Chris Campbell as a member of the high school building committee. So, yeah, we can continue that maybe and have a high school financial working group kind of
Sure.
thing.
Good suggestion.
Yeah, that is good. Maybe we'll more formalize that. Okay, thank you. Terry, thank you. This is longer than I
Gentlemen, appreciate it.
Yep.
expected. You said if you weren't home, if you were still here at 9 or something. there was
I didn't
gonna be-
say anything like that. I'll be back here at 2:30 tomorrow. Down the street, there's a large concrete structure. You guys might be familiar with it.
I recommend you sleep in the rubber gym.
Through tomorrow.
360,000 square feet of concrete masonry in it.
Thank you, Terry.
There's a walkthrough at 2:30 tomorrow with some of the.
Yeah, so just as a point of fact, so we have 7 firms that are interested in becoming a construction manager. They've all pre-qualified. We have a site walk tomorrow at 2:30. So
If you want to walk through the high school again, 2:30 tomorrow, you're welcome.
It's part of a crowd.
It's going to be a pretty big crowd, maybe 30 or 40 people.
It's all right, it's a big building.
Yeah, we'll spread them out.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
And get lost up on the second floors.
So, next on the agenda, and this ran a little longer than I expected, but it's a big topic. Yeah,
Just a quick question.
yes.
Does John have anybody he wants to introduce?
Yes, yes.
John, could you introduce somebody?
Come on up, Patrick.
Patrick, you going to be around at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for calling us up.
Sorry.
This is the Patrick I've been talking about for a month now, Patrick Lawler, who has joined us just this week from the town of Andover. We're excited to have him. He's the new assistant town administrator and the finance director, and has already impressed us with all the work he's done in just a couple days. And you'll be seeing his face a lot and hearing his voice a lot. So it's good for him to get to meet all you guys tonight. I know he's met some of you during the interview process and during other meetings, but I dragged him with me here tonight and said, let's go jump into the fire.
Thank you, and I apologize, because I kept seeing Patrick over there thinking, oh, I got to introduce when this is over, and then I
I
just
thought he was with Tab A.
zoned out. Yeah, so Patrick, welcome to town.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Looking forward to working with everybody. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I think you've had a little experience with debt exclusion votes.
Yes,
So,
All positive, right?
yes, yes.
so we welcome you and appreciate it, and looking forward to getting to know you and working with you.
Absolutely, likewise. Thank you.
Which town are you coming from?
I worked for the town of Andover.
Okay.
So just to add about tomorrow's group isn't really a Ways and Means group. It's an ad hoc group of the town administrator to bring some folks in to, it's sort of a kickoff meeting for us to talk about. We sort of got away from the way we did capital here because we were using kind of the debt plan to drive capital, and we had a list that really wasn't very useful. And now there were some projects that got backed up, as Frank has coined the phrase spacing and pacing. So now I use it in my presentations too.
Attaboy.
Because of that and some historic escalation costs, even the debt plan was a useless tool. So what had happened was some projects got added to or approved that were never showed up on any list. And now what we've done is gone to another almost useless document that is basically just a list of everybody's asks. And what I have asked is to get a group together that represents the biggest departments in towns that own most of those asks, and then some folks from here, from Capital, and the finance team, and work to get that document to be a useful document, an actual planning document. And just in the couple days, and Patrick will sort of be leading that charge, and just in the past couple days, we've talked about a bunch of ideas that we've all kind of talked about, bits and pieces of them. But we're excited to get that group kicked off, but we see that meeting throughout the whole summer, with an effort to have something in place for the fall to either make a presentation or have the document ready for the next budget season. So, you'll be seeing a lot more, I guess was the point.
Great.
I think that'll be very helpful, because there are questions from town meeting about the process and wanting a little more information, a little more update. So hopefully by fall, we can give them significant information, or at least really let them know, okay, this is the process and this is how far we are into it, and this is what to expect in the future when we look at budgets. So.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor it, but anecdotally and very timely, I get a pretty steady stream of people. You get the $500 million, and what are you guys doing? And this is nuts, and you don't have a plan, and we can't afford this. We got to stop that, not because they're wrong. It's because the messaging is useless. What we really need to have is, what are the agreed upon projects? what does the timing look like? What are the best estimates of the cost? What does the debt support look like? And we've got to make the projects match what the debt budget can support. It's not the other way around, right? And that's what's really out of whack. So if we can get our arms around that and actually bring that as a test case to September to support, wherever we land with the cost and timing of the high school that would really be a step forward from a process point of view. So I welcome, your role in this and to get that underway. But people really are hitting us with that. It's not just a couple of whack jobs. It's quite a few of them.
That hurts a little because I think I was the first one to say $500 million. So.
Well, bite your tongue.
Anything else? So let's move forward. I had asked Ed just to talk a little bit about the capital planning process and kind of what we've talked about. It kind of leads into what John is saying, and I'm not sure we need a long discussion, as long as you want to have.
Right. I mean, the main points I wanted to get across, and I was prepping myself to make them concisely, have already been made.
Yeah.
So thank you all. I'm one of the whack jobs, as I'm sure you know, making inflammatory comments over the last couple of years, that, these schedules of the debt plan, the capital plan, what goes to town meeting don't quite match up. And so, yeah, that's exactly the problem. Town meeting doesn't know what to make of it. And so town meeting, however, has ultimate authority to set priorities, but trying to set priorities on town meeting floor is just an intractable process. So we should avoid having arguments over priorities in the context of one particular item that perhaps hasn't been as well vetted as other items that come to a vote in May. And so I think Ways and Means has an interest in that being an orderly process. It'll make our lives a lot easier at the very least, and in a larger sense, I think it's what's best for the town to have an orderly process. And I think we're central to that, whether we like it or not, because we make recommendations to the town. And so I think there's been a process that Town Hall has taken care of to date, or at least to a date a couple of years ago, before we had some huge projects that kind of overwhelmed all of this planning. And I think we need to formalize that and make sure it's a process that can be explained and is digestible for town meeting to consider. So from time to time, when they think our priorities should be different, they should have a mechanism to assess where we're going and maybe make their comments and do so years ahead of time so we can make adjustments as we go. The main message right now is that we've done the work that I think we do best, which is to do a little analysis and see how the parts fit together on the mechanics of putting together budgets. And it's very much like the charts that we presented earlier this January. We should keep that up, I think, and have solid targets for the percent of debt service to explain why we have this budget for debt service and we don't really want to borrow more than this year. I think we need a better explanation of what free cash is and a better explanation of how we use it and why. Because it's just not an allocation to be spent on whatever we can think of. We need departments and the school department to have a list of priorities which we can optimistically fund and then distinguish that from real needs, which have to be prioritized years ahead of time, if at all possible. So I think we have an interest in that. I think that we should continue with the Town Hall one broad broader, capital, we've kind of become a capital planning subcommittee of Ways and Means. And I think that we don't want to take over the capital planning committee, but I think we should also pull them in and ask them to help out a bit where it's clearly within their purview, to collect all of these capital needs and put them on a schedule and work with you. So I think in the near term, maybe we keep it with Town Hall 1, or maybe we have a special broader subcommittee to manage the borrowing for the high school, which is going to be a big component of the operational budget as well, a big change in the operational budget. So I think as you make your plans, we should try to make ourselves helpful, and keep in mind that we need to explain what's going on there to town meeting. Town meeting really deserves to be able to understand what's going on and to forward their ideas about priorities. So where does that lead? I think what I was hoping is just to show a little resolve to keep that planning process going, which has been in occasional meetings of Town Hall 1 subcommittee.
If I may, and I think what David's saying is Town Hall 1, if you look at the list of things that, we do, town insurance, this, that, there's like, 20 things that just in the operating budget we meet on and we deal with, and that's Town Hall 1. This has grown really into the management of priorities of capital versus debt and overall planning of the flow of the operating budget. We might want to think about that in the context of, I don't know if it's just an expansion of Town Hall 1 or another charter of, not an operating budget-based meeting just during budget season, but a periodic planning update meeting of capital and debt, and it's really it. It's capital and debt. That's really the nutshell. And we might want to think about that as an additional thing, because I think it's a little bit more complicated than typically. That's why we end up with, you call it Town Hall 1 and Friends. It really just isn't two people and, the town administrator. There's much more to it, or there should be. So
perhaps I have found the straw that breaks the back of Town Hall 1. And so a suggestion I have is to have another subcommittee, which can meet a couple times a year at least.
Yeah.
And invite in representatives from the Capital Budget Committee, Town Hall, and us to just explore that intersection between the operating budget that we pay careful attention to during budget
doing
season
updates on it. Yeah.
and the
I think
capital
that
plan
makes
that
more sense.
creates that debt service.
So maybe we can talk about formalizing that in July, definitely.
Yeah.
We'll have
I
more.
think that's a good idea, at least.
Shane?
I'm not sure. If it helps, I can offer my services, kind of liaise between, I don't know nearly enough about capital budgets. So
You will.
I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to learn and.
It's a journey we'll all take together.
Okay.
A third body, I guess.
Rob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It just sounds like the capital budget committee is not doing their job and we have to do it. Why are we letting them do it? Not doing their job.
Well, this is a way to fix that.
Yeah, but they should be doing this. You shouldn't be doing it on your own.
If I may, they know a lot less than we do about actually how to plan debt service and where all the considerations for debt come from, and percentage of operating budgets and that sort of thing. So I do think there's a multifaceted skill set engaged here, and we do want a lot more from them with the priorities and the vetting and the costing and the timing on the projects, but we also need to consider, we want to drive it from what we can support from a financial point of view as well, maybe even more importantly. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think right now, we're working at the intersection between the committees right now. And I think the point is to come up with a way to
Put it together.
help set those priorities so that it may define what we need from that committee to help fill in the holes.
And they will be there tomorrow morning when we
Right.
start.
They're
this
part of the process,
committee
for sure.
is put together. This is a, multifunctional committee. And we've elected the town administrator or the assistant town administrator to be the person in charge.
Welcome.
It's a public meeting.
They, well, it's
No,
Brace
it's
yourself.
it's
Brace yourself
not
for
a, it's not a
impact.
posted.
It's not a
posted.
It's not posted?
No, it's only
Oh, I'm
town
sorry.
administrator ad hoc, asking people to come in to.
We're acting as advisors to administration, so it's not a committee meeting.
What time is it?
You don't get off that easy.
All right, I apologize.
You know too much.
Where is it?
If you can stay right where you are.
No, thanks.
Okay. We're ready to,
But, and I just wanted to clarify, I think that the challenge is just establishing what the expectations are. There's no particular reason why Capital Budget Committee should have an expectation to be planning, to be part of the kind of the macro planning. I'm reading the bylaws right here. They've got two jobs, which is to review all matters involving expenditure of more than $15,000, and then secondly, to receive by February 1st of each year from every board officer and committee charged with the expenditure of town funds and detailed estimates of capital expenditures. So it is specified that they are the nexus. They're the ones who are supposed to receive those plans, and how that feeds into this macro planning, we have to sit down and talk through it.
And to date, if I may, to date, the way the process has worked is they've got the detail for that particular year, and then sort of just what the multi-year list is, and they dig in on that particular year, and they certainly do ask questions about stuff that's down the line, but the focus is on, is that number correct? Is it the item worthwhile? Do they think that it should be approved? And that's
It's a
before-
year to year
That's
for-
typically before anybody gets here.
Yeah.
To you guys, they've met with Capital.
And a point I'll just say for the record is that we will all be much more effective if we talk to each other. So a coordinating meeting on occasion, I think, would be very
Sure.
helpful.
yeah, message received.
Excellent.
So, I don't know if we have any reports of major changes for police station? No. Your police? Your police? No, your police.
Just the bricks.
Nope.
It's moving along.
The next regular meeting is Thursday next week. They've been meeting with the abutters, or trying to meet with the abutters. The abutters have really not shown. Or the same abutter has shown up almost every time.
Good job.
And the plan goes on. I don't think there's. are there
Yeah,
changes
the
in the schedule?
status of it is, we're going through the approval process through the boards that need to approve it. We're having our public hearing with planning board tomorrow. Will be our first of the site plan review. They've already done, they've started the preliminary design. We've been approved at the Board of Health for the project to move forward, and we had a kickoff meeting with Conservation with one left. So, a couple more meetings coming up, and then we can get the bids out and find out where we're going to land with the building, but.
All right. Knock on wood.
Brick.
Fox Hill? Who's Fox Hill guy? Oh, you're Fox Hill. No. Who's Fox Hill?
Nothing new on Fox Hill.
Okay. All right. And athletic fields, Chris Delaney's not here, but if you've been following along, they've run into some issues with the buildable size of the field and with what they're going to be able to do. Interestingly, they're, I don't know, did they have that vote?
They did vote
They
to
did.
pursue a smaller plan that fits within conservation's,
Good
Okay,
night, guys.
okay,
within the conservation limits.
okay. So their buildable area got much smaller, and so instead of 2 fields, there may be 1 or 1.5 or 1.25 or something fields, so, yeah.
Is there an expectation that the price may be different with a reduced?
Yes, I think so. They sent it back to the engineering firm that's working on it to, come up with the new plan.
Okay.
Did they do anything on the bathroom?
No.
No.
That was a separate warrant article that was withdrawn, so, no.
And just curious,
Yeah, Dave.
just curious, from the approval of that, because that was kind of one of those last minute, let's vote. The fact that we're not going to get anything close to what we thought we were going to get through our schematics and what was being, will that have to go for a revote? Or is it just one of those, we approved it at 4.8, and as long as there's 4.8?
We approved it for a specific purpose, so that's a good point. The approval was we're going to get 2 fields out of this, right?
No, you did know, I mean, all the pictures and all the design were 2 fields. It was sold as you're going to get 2 fields.
Yeah, so if you don't get,
Town meeting?
Yes.
yeah, so if you don't get 2
wonder I
fields,
didn't vote for
that
it.
does seem like it's not within the bounds of the article.
Right, so here's an
It's sort of like they,
example of that we approved a certain amount of money, but we thought we were getting this, and now we're only getting this, but where's the dollar amounts line up?
well, to be clear, we approved both a certain amount of money and the thing that is to be spent on. So if it's spent on something that's substantially different, that would seem like an issue.
I would think.
Are you guys really
That's a very
certain you
good-
voted for 2 fields on the
Not
lower
in,
field?
probably not in, the problem, probably not in the
Money
wording.
for fields.
Not in, no.
Backup sure had
It-
2 fields.
The backup had disclaimers on that the field diagram was conceptual, and they would do their best to accommodate various field uses, as I recall. But nonetheless, it is worth, as a negotiating point, when you put it to bid, that
Well, if
No,
you
it
want them
may
to
be a
bring it
smaller
back to
scope.
town meeting, that has to be agreed to, because I don't think they have any intention of doing that.
No, and I don't know that we
Seems improbable.
have resolved to have taken interest in that.
Yeah.
I think that we should take an interest in them getting the most for the money or spending less money.
Last May.
Last May.
That was last May, right?
Trying to see it.
Yes, I don't think in the wording of the warrant article it specified square footages or fields. I just think in all the presentations and the pretty pictures it should.
Constant.
That's right. I did have a protracted discussion with my son, the soccer player, on what field dimensions might fit and what, age group field might fit there.
So does that answer your question?
Well, it does. I'm curious now, I may go back and kind of look at all the material, just to see, because again, it begs the question again, that was just asked about the school. What are we getting exactly for this 350 and what's being approved and all that? With this, it was a last minute vote that was approved at a certain dollar amount, no question. But we had tons of discussion of what the field could be, and yes, it would be within the parameters, but if you're, and I'm going to prove a point, I'm going to go way over on the other side, so I understand it. If we're just getting a tennis court there, right, so here we had these visions, we had throwing fields, we had stadium seating, we had 2 soccer fields, we had all this stuff planned out. And if it just ends up being one smaller version soccer field, no stadium seating, no throwing area, does that meet the expectation of what we spent the millions of dollars on?
But we voted for it. Town meeting voted for that, and shame on town meeting for not knowing what they were actually voting for, because that's what happened.
Well, you couldn't have a formal approval of what was going to be built until we voted money in order to say, get it out to start designing.
One meeting to debate that.
Right,
The real attempt was made to do
Just,
that. It was
just to be
water
clear,
on the water.
I'm looking at the warrant, and it was basically for a purpose of repairing, replacing, and renovating the athletic fields at Marshall Simons Middle School. So we can say we were sold the bill of goods in the backup, but in terms of what we voted for in the warrant, it is still meeting that, so.
Well, and then there were amendments that split it in 2.
Yeah, there's the additional adjustments, of course, but.
I mean,
The school process, if you look at what's going on, I'm way out of order, I think.
Let's stop
Gavel
with that.
yourself out of order, Frank.
We will be out of order.
Yes.
Thank you.
We do have a hand up. Mr. Young. Let me see if I have to,
Do you have to energize them?
I don't know if I do or not.
Oh, there we go.
There he is.
Speak up.
Louder.
You're going to have to get much louder, Bob.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the town meeting, and it's interesting, my recollection is, I think we have to go back and look at it, but I certainly, quite certain I saw, and I think it was presented, there was a computer drawing of the building side here. And if someone wants to say it's small grading, I've seen examples of it here, where there was grass, I mean, the word grass is not, I don't want to live in a world where somebody builds a picture, and then I have to have a lawyer tell me, hey, get your magnifying glass up. I don't want to say it to me, said, well, it wasn't 100%, that's my recollection, and at the moment, it does feel unfair and a little bit of a big split. So, I think people that are on the committee more than I am, are on the committee, but downtown and certainly made some, I think, very fair comments that they should be looked at and maybe be revisited. That's just my feeling, and thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, I don't know what administrative process we could use to formally make a point here, but maybe we should think about it.
Right. Okay. I'll investigate that. Because it is, there will be questions, there's no doubt, and there will be concerns. And it isn't, unfortunately, I think it's as much the outcome of just having a rushed,
Oh, yeah,
Exactly.
no doubt.
hey, and some of that gets back to, we have to better define free cash, because it looked like a giant sum of money that was there up for grabs, and you had a motivated group to
We
say,
almost got a
we'll
$10
grab it.
million stadium.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
it does fit within our oversight role, though, to say, whether it's said in the warrant or not, you clearly sold it as a certain project and you're doing something else that needs to be discussed at a minimum.
Yeah, okay.
I can't quite hear you. It's a-
And it is, but it was under the authority of the school committee, so they're primary there.
Sure. So it may be sending a message to the school committee and asking about that. All right. Quickly, then, minutes for May 7th, 2025. I got several good responses, just with little adjustments or filling in there were some question marks, and I'm sorry I sent it right to you guys as I got it, and I didn't go back. But I think we have all the question marks as far as amounts checked and filled in. And there were a couple of just descriptions that could have been better that we worked on. But if people had a chance to review the minutes and are comfortable taking a vote, I would like to get that out of the way.
Move to approve as amended.
Second?
Second.
Cheyenne?
Chris isn't online anymore.
Okay.
Oh, we can do a hand raise.
Oh, we can. All in favor?
Quick before he reconnects.
Opposed? Abstain?
So,
We're good.
point of information, Mr. Chairman. On the minutes, it would be a good idea when we get a motion to adjourn, that the time of the adjournment is actually put into the minutes.
All right.
Because it provides a timeline of the meeting, when it started, when it ended. And I think that actually we should do that.
Okay. I think you just made the recommendation to the appropriate person, but I'll pass it on as well.
You ready for the next item?
I am ready for the most important.
Second?
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.